In today's episode, we're going to talk about 5 different areas in your life that you can start to work on in order to just enhance everything. And we're going to talk about different interpersonal skills that you can be using, or different skills really that you should be using and utilizing in order to just succeed in a multiple areas in your personal life. So let's just jump into it quickly, and on our way, here we go. So the first one I'm going to talk about is I don't even know if this is the most important. I think all these are really important. I think this one is going to be really important for me right now because I honestly just bought a course on this. And the course is on communication, learning how to speak. And I think it is so powerful because the most influential people know how to talk. It could be somebody who is getting in front of thousands of people or somebody who's just getting in front of one person. But if you're able to have a conversation, if you're able to understand how, as my now new teacher likes to say, this instrument works, you have the ability to make such a differences in so many different areas of your life. Anytime you are communicating with somebody else, the way you communicate is really, really important. And what we have to realize is that there are tricks and skills and techniques that you can start to use to really just enhance that tool that you have. And for so many of us, we don't even realize it's a tool. And I think for most of these tips, you don't realize it's a tool. You think, or you're labeling yourself as one way or another. And the truth is, you can start to learn to become somebody. You can start to learn what it is you can do. And a lot of times people get this feeling of, well, I'm not being authentic enough, right? Who am I? I'm not the person who's loud. I'm not the person who's out there, who's outgoing. I'm not the person who is the rah guy. But if you want to be, you can become that person. And instead of thinking that's not my true authentic self, why can't we think about it as we haven't developed it yet. We haven't developed the skill to become that person. It's interesting because whenever I think about my funniest friends, and maybe this happens to you also, but if you think about your funniest friends, they are the ones who, when they were younger, took the risk on making jokes. And they didn't really care when people responded or not. Or maybe they made one funny joke, got a good response, so then they took the risk to make another funny joke, and then another one, and then another one. And then all of a sudden, they learned the skill of telling jokes. And then over time and years of doing it, they became the funny guy or the funny gal. And what we have to realize is that that is a skill that you can learn. And all you have to do is you have to be able to put yourself out there. And as we get older, as we become adults, we end up holding ourselves back because we don't think we can be that person. But if you want to be that person, you can step into it and learn what it is that you need to be learning. I'm going to talk about a different area that I learned that I thought was really important when I became an entrepreneur. But we have to realize and understand that if we want to become somebody, if we want to be doing certain things, especially in the realm of communication, we have the skills to be doing it. So for example, one of the things that I know for me personally that I'm trying to work on, I'm not even there yet, is that I slur the end of my words. I mumble a tremendous amount. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to practice not mumbling. And it's interesting and it feels uncomfortable when I'm focusing on it. But what I have to realize is that if I want to be able to articulate myself, and if I want to be able to say the right things, then I'm going to have to be able to slow down sometimes. And I'm going to have to be able to think, and I'm going to have to be able to finish my sentences and finish every single syllable that I'm trying to say. And it's hard, and I'm still working on it, and I'm not perfect. But I know when I look back at videos and I'm watching or listening to myself, I realize that's something that I want to be working on. And now I have tools that I can start to use. I have exercises that I can use. So now when I look to communicate, I'm not going to be ending my sentences very low, right? I'm not going to sound not confident because I'm ending my sentences low. I'm going to sound more confident because I'm ending them on a higher tone. And if we can start to do these little things, it's literally little tricks that you can start to train yourself, then you could become that type of person. So for me, communication was something that was so important because I knew that in my passion that I want to be doing, the way that I want to be helping people, understanding how to be able to use my tone, how to use my voice, how to use this instrument, that's going to be the thing that's going to be able to help me progress and to move forward. Because I used to be a shy kid. I still think I'm a shy kid. That's a label that I have on myself. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to break out of that mold. I'm trying to become somebody who I want to become, somebody I'm proud of, somebody that I could vision and picture myself as. And that is something that I'm working on constantly. And I think it's a really, really key place to be able to start to work on. Another area that I think is an underlying principle that will help you in so many different areas, whether it's your business or your relationship, is your patience. Let's try to be more clear there, right? So when we are trying to work on ourselves and becoming a more patient person, we all know that if we would turn our patience dial up, if we become a more patient person, it's only going to be able to help us in so many different areas. Do you not think when your kids are throwing everything around, or you know what, they just spilled their food for the third time, by you being a more patient person, you're only going to become a better parent, that you're not going to get upset and frustrated just for yourself, for your own sake? We all have the ability to be able to work on it, and it is a skill that we can start to work on. And you might ask yourself, well, Ben, how do you work on your patience? And guess what? I will tell you, because this is what I've been doing. This is how I'm trying to practice it. And usually what happens is that there's certain areas in our life that we just get extremely impatient. And unfortunately, with the people that we're closest with, we usually have that trigger, or the impatience happens the quickest. And the reason why it really makes sense is because those people are most of the time more forgiving, right? You could snap at somebody close to you, you could snap at your spouse, and then later you could just go apologize. But would you ever snap at your boss, even if you want to? Maybe if the straw that broke the camel's back, and therefore then you actually had, and then you snapped, and then you get the result of the snap. But many times with the people that we're closest with, so maybe it's a child, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a good friend, we have the ability to just come back. That person knows us, right? They keep doing the same thing over and over and over again. And what we need to do first is, number one, is we need to get that feedback. We need to understand what is going on here. Why is it that I keep getting stressed? What are the situations where I get stressed? Because if we can start to focus on that, then all of a sudden we can start to say, hey, you know what? I'm more prepared now. So whenever one of these situations is about to occur, I have the ability to start to prepare myself to become more patient. I know that there's a different version of me that I have to become during these times. For me, I know when dinner hits, it's usually like a witch hour for me, because on the one hand, I'm exhausted from the day, I'm extremely hungry, and then my kids are coming home and they're doing whatever they're doing, and there's just like so much going on. And I know for me personally, it's a time where I get really stressed out. And I just have zero patience for anybody. So I know that I have to be more focused on my patience there. I know that I'm going to be a little softer, and I have to be able to take a step back. So when something does happen, what do I have to do is I have to realize, you know what? Bennett, you're hangry. You got to move forward right now. And what we have to do is just take a second. Think about it before you react. And I think if we could slow the reaction, because that's really what happens when we become impatient, is that we're reacting to something that happens to us. And if we could just say, hey, you know what? I'm not going to react right away. I'm going to give myself a couple of seconds, just a couple of seconds. And then the next time, a couple of more seconds. And the time after that, a little bit more time. So then what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to have this buffer zone of time from when the action occurs and you react. And usually after about 15, 20 seconds of something happening, you don't react right away. And because of that, you're able to keep yourself from moving forward. And you end up becoming a more patient person. And then you start telling yourself, hey, my son spilled his food for the third time and I didn't get upset tonight. That's amazing. And then we build this confidence, we build this patient muscle that we can have for ourselves. So understanding what gets you triggered, and then also understanding how can I delay my reaction, that's going to be the thing that's going to be able to help us to move forward. The next idea that I want to talk about, and the next arena that we should be focusing on, and I think this is really important for many different people, and I think this is more of a main category, and there's subcategories over here, and I'm going to share with you a few of them, is business. Okay, for a lot of people, maybe it's business, maybe it's finance, that is a massive stress for so many people. Being able to focus on what it is they want to be focusing on. I know as a father, as a husband, as somebody who's trying to take care of my family, I understand that when finances are tight, when things get tight, when maybe coming up in the months, things aren't as foreseen as they should be, that I personally get extremely stressed out because it's my job to take care of my family. And what I'm trying to figure out is what is it that I need to learn? What are the skills that I need in order to be able to make sure that doesn't happen? And I think when I first jumped into entrepreneurship, that was one of the things that was so scary to me. It was one of the things that was so hard for me because I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew how to run a business. I thought I knew how to invest. And I read the books and I listened to the podcasts. But then what happened was is when I bought my first investment property after listening to hours of books and listening to, reading hundreds of pages, I realized I had no idea what I was doing. And when I started to work on it, I realized, hey, you know what? I might have bitten off too much that I can chew. And that was something that was so eye-opening for me. And I tell this story about how, the one of the first deals, I lost a lot of money. And I went to my coach and I was just upset. I was so frustrated. And I sat down with him and he saw that I was annoyed. And he asked me, like, Benno, what's going on? And I told him I just lost a lot of money in one of my real estate deals. And he looked at me again and he's like, so why are you upset? I'm like, I just told you I lost a lot of money in one of my real estate deals. And he looked at me, he's like, you're not getting it, Bennett. That's not considered a failure. That's just good feedback. And I took a step back and I asked him to repeat himself. I mean, can you say that again? He's like, it's not failure. It's just feedback. And I've heard those acronyms many times about failure and fail and what it actually stands for and this and that. But it was the first time that it really hit the chord with me. It was the first time that I recognized that I was putting myself out there, which I was so proud of myself. The result wasn't really the result that I wanted, but it was the result I deserved. It was the result now that I know I've done X, Y, and Z, and now I have to take a step back and say, hey, what's going on here? What are the pieces I was missing? So the next time I can invest in something, I'm going to make money. But I would have never known. And for so many of us, we look at that experience and it holds us back forever. As opposed to other people who look at that experience and now say, this was my learning opportunity. How can I move forward? Hopefully you don't have to pay as much as I paid for that experience, but to understand what is it that I need to be doing in order to become somebody. And I think when it comes to business, when it comes to our finances, we have to learn and understand how to invest our money because there's a way to be doing it. We have to learn the skills within our own businesses. So whether that's marketing, whether that's sales, whether that's just understanding how products and our clients work. But understanding these are all skills we can be learning. And if you can be somebody who can learn these skills, then you're going to become a better business person. And that's going to be the asset. Because it doesn't matter what business you're in, you're going to be able to utilize it in any business that you decide to move forward with. And it's something that is so key, especially, I know, for me personally, that was a huge eye-opener. And it's something that I started to learn, and not just learn, but I used to start to practice it. I used to start to see how can I apply these things in my own life. So I'm learning marketing and I'm learning about headlines. How can I make new headlines that are more engaging to people? What are the sales techniques that I'm using that I can now use when I'm speaking to people? And these were the most powerful things that I was using. And I would take note of when I would use them. I would see, hey, I would build up scenarios in my head. When this person says this, then I have to respond like this. And that was something that was so important to me. Another area that I think a lot of people need to be working on, and this is one I think that happens a lot with goals, is learning to commit. And I know for me personally, commitment was something that was so difficult, whether it was in my relationships or whether it was in my businesses or whether it was what I'm going to have for dinner. Committing was petrifying. I thought that I was signing up my life for something. And what I didn't realize is that I could commit for a certain amount of time. I could commit for a period of time. And then I could reassess to see if it was worth it or not. And for many people, they think when they commit, they're doing something for the rest of their lives. And they have to do it no matter what. But we have to understand that we could commit and we could put whatever factors we want into the commitment itself. However, when we commit, we should commit. We shall fulfill our words. If we say we're going to be doing something, we need to be doing something. My son today asked me for a drink, and I said I'm going to get him. And then I totally forgot. And then he asked me, Daddy, you mind getting me a drink? And I was like, I totally forgot. And my wife was like, no, you sit, Ben, and I'll get it. And I'm like, no, I said I'm going to do it. I want to do it. And it's something that's so silly. But I said, not just for my son, but for me, I want to be able to show commitment to my son. I said I'm going to do something, so therefore I'm going to do it. Yeah, I messed up. I totally forgot. But guess what? I'm committing to it. And I think for so many people, it's so hard for them to commit to something. But just like a muscle, we have the ability to learn how to commit. And you might ask yourself, how? Well, let's just start with something small. Let's start with something for the next 3 days. I'm going to wake up and make my bed in the morning. just for 3 days, and I'll see how it goes afterwards. Maybe I don't want to be doing it. Whatever it might be, you can start to build a muscle of commitment. Because one of the worst things you can do is just throw this word out to say you're committing to something and then not really being committed. But if you're really committing, you're committing until, period. And that's it. You're going to commit until. It's one of the things when a lot of people ask me, when some of my clients ask me, hey, Bennett, I want to go to the gym. And they're like, I want to go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm like, I love you, but like, that's not happening. Because I've seen this story way too many times. Let's commit to 2 days a week for the next month. That's what we're going to do. Then no matter what, for the next month, we're going to go 2 days a week. And what we have to realize is that if we could commit to that, let's see us build on that. Because what happens with commitment is once we get some wins in, once we go through the tough times, the tough times will happen, then we could start to make it bigger. Then we could commit for just a little bit more time. And for so many people, they don't realize that they have the ability to be committing for a little bit longer. But they can't even get themselves to commit for a little bit in order to build on top of it. We need to understand that when it comes to our commitment, when it comes to the things that we want to be doing, and if we can start to commit to the small things, we build the muscle to become somebody who can commit to the bigger things, to commit to the longer projects. I recently just committed to a project that's probably going to take me about 5 years. You don't know how scary that was. And I didn't commit right away. And I think what happens a lot of times with commitment is that people tend to commit to something that might be a big commitment, but they don't do it thought out. They're not thinking about it. They just say, I'm committing to it. And they don't really mean it. You need to think about it. You need to get into the right mindset, the right frame in order to allow yourself to stay committed to it. And the last and final thing that I think can be a skill that you can start to work on that's only going to be so helpful for you is really working on not letting your ego take over. You see, this is something I think we all go through. Every single one of us, whenever something happens to us, our ego comes out and wants to protect us. Our ego wants to say that it's not fair for us. Our ego is the thing that tells us, hey, Bennett, like you have to feel bad for yourself. You have to feel sad for yourself when X, Y, and Z happens. And what we have to understand is that we have the ability to control our ego, to not let it come to head and keep it at bay. Because there's so many things in our life, if our egos are the one who are driving the car, it is not going to end well. And it's interesting because I play in this intramural basketball league on Monday nights. And one of the things that I try working on is that every time the referees mess up, because they do mess up, it's not just me. Sometimes they mess up. But I don't blame them for the mess up. I understand that it's part of the game. My ego in me wants to like yell at them and tell them, come on, what are you doing? But I understand that it's not, first of all, strategically, it's not going to be beneficial for me. They're only going to make more calls on me and they're going to look for it. And number two, the time that it actually makes sense for me or they did miss a call, they're not going to listen because I complain about everything. And I think it was so powerful for me to say, hey, you know what? This is a great opportunity to be able to work on my ego, to not have to say anything, even if I'm not in the wrong. And if I could do it when that happens, when I am in the wrong, guess what? I'll be able to accept it. And for so many of us, our egos are the one controlling. And there are other people who can't keep their mouth shut, that every time something happens, they miss the shot or the ref does something, or I don't know, they trip over their shoes, they're constantly blaming something else. And if we cannot let our egos be the ones in control, that's going to be a thing that can shift everything. And all we have to do is start working on it. You know that feeling when your ego comes out. It's like you feel it in your chest. And for some reason, it's so difficult. And I think the first part is just recognizing it and acknowledging that there is this feeling. And then you could say it. And then the step after that is feeling it and just holding it down. And I'm telling you, if you can start to wait and to not let it happen, similar to the patient's example of not reacting right away, you are going to be able to not fall to your ego. You're going to be able to hold yourself back, and you're going to have so many more opportunities because the amount of bridges that people burn because they're giving into their ego, they're giving into that desire, is way too much. And we're not judging ourselves here because our ego is trying to look out for us, but we want to be in control of it. We don't want it to be in control of us. So whether it's your communication that you want to be working on, your patience you want to be working on, your business you want to be working on, your commitment, or you want to be working on your ego. These are 5 different areas that could be tremendous when it comes to your own growth. And it can really help you in so many different areas. I know for me personally, I give examples of different ways that I'm personally working on it. And I know it's been extremely helpful, and I still have ways to go. But guess what? I'm playing this infinite game of understanding that I'm going to keep playing the game. I'm going to keep working on myself, because that's going to be the thing that's going to be able to help me move forward. Let me know which one of the 5 you thought was very useful in the comments down below. If you have any questions on any of them, make sure to also put them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them. Hope it was helpful. Thanks for listening if you're there, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace out.